Team USA just named their starting point guard for the 2026 World Cup qualifiers, and it's sending shock waves through the basketball world. After Caitlin Clark's injury-plagued 2025 season, many questioned if she could still compete at the international level. But what coaches witnessed during her first week back on the court changed everything. Clark didn't just prove she was healthy. She proved that the entire Team USA system needed to adapt to her style of play, not the other way around. The implications for both the Fever and Team USA are massive. Are you excited to see Clark back on the court? Show some love for Caitlin down in the comments.
There is a consistency when it comes to Caitlin Clark. And that consistency is that everybody is saying one thing, whether they change, the specifics of it, or they talk about defense, or they talk about other aspects. The one consistent theme is that she looks like herself and she is back.
When Caitlin Clark walked into Team USA training camp in December, everyone was watching for one thing. Could she still move like the player who broke 62 records as a rookie? Her 2025 season had been a nightmare of setbacks. A quad strain hit during pre-season. Then another quad injury cost her nearly 3 weeks early in the season. But the groin strain in mid-July was the real killer. That injury kept her off the court for months. And when an ankle bone bruise followed, her season was done. 6 months without 5-on-5 basketball. That's how long Clark had been away from real competition. Medical staff knew the risks. Groin injuries mess with your lateral movement. Ankle problems can change how you plant and cut. The coaching staff was studying every step she took during those first practice sessions. They needed to see if she could still create separation on her drives. They needed to know if that explosive first step was still there. Clark admitted she had rust to shake off, but her body language during warm-ups told a different story. The fluid movement was back. Her shooting form looked crisp during early drills, but warm-ups are one thing. Game speed is completely different. Sue Bird was watching closely and noticed something important. Clark's signature step back three was still automatic. The timing looked natural. The balance was there. Bird was impressed with her rhythm, especially that step back in transition that made her famous at Iowa.
Clark back on the court, super impressed with Caitlin just being engaged while she was out and getting back to being able to play. It was a combination of USA players going against USA players, and then also USA players going against the scout team, which was just players from small colleges all across North Carolina sort of helping out with that scout team practice. And, she looked like Caitlin. The step back three was there, the passes were there.
Other veterans were doing their own evaluation. They watched how Clark moved without the ball. Any hesitation when changing directions? Any compensation patterns that might signal lingering issues? The international pace is relentless. Players need to be able to handle contact and keep moving. One awkward step or missed cut could expose weakness that opposing teams would target mercilessly. Sabrina Merchant from The Athletic was there watching everything unfold. She saw Clark's passing skills looked intact. The court vision was still sharp. Annie Costabile from Front Office Sports focused on the overall health assessment. Both observers came away with positive impressions. But the real test would come during scrimmage action when bodies started flying and the tempo picked up.
FIBA, naturally, just a lot more physical than other levels of basketball, even more physical than the WNBA. So having to see Caitlin go at scouting players who were, instructed to play at a FIBA level of physicality was interesting, considering how long she's been out and the fact that she's still ramping up injury-wise, but she looked good. She was just so happy to be there.
Clark declared herself 100% healthy when asked directly. Bold words from someone who'd spent months rehabbing. But her on-court performance backed up every word of that claim. The lateral quickness was there when defending smaller guards. The explosion to the rim looked effortless. She was finishing through contact and getting to her spots without any visible limitations. This health confirmation opened doors that had been closed all season. Suddenly, coaches weren't just evaluating whether Clark could contribute. They were evaluating how much responsibility she could handle. The starting point guard role became a real possibility instead of a distant hope. Her physical readiness meant they could start building systems around her unique skill set rather than working around her limitations. Something weird started happening during those first scrimmages. Veterans who had been playing together for years were suddenly out of sync. Dear Hamby caught one of Clark's passes and brought the ball down instead of keeping it moving. That's not what you do with Clark's passes. Her rhythm operates on a completely different level than what these players were used to.
He was not playing with Aaliyah Boston. Some of the bigs didn't know what to do with their passes. There was one time where she passed it to Hamby, and Hamby brought the ball down. It's like, you can't do that. This is not. You have to keep it up, right? Right up. Just not expecting where that was.
Clark's passes were ahead of the play. She was seeing opportunities before they fully developed. The timing was throwing off even experienced national team players. Hami wasn't the only one struggling to keep up. Other veterans were hesitating when they should have been cutting. They were pausing when they should have been moving.
Caitlin makes the post-entry pass to Hamby. The kind of pass that only Caitlin Clark can make. And Hamby puts the ball on the floor as was described. Here you'll see it. So some ball movement at the top of the key. Caitlin has it here. And she's going to make the kind of pass once she gets it back here that really only she would make. And that's a hell of a post-entry pass. But she did put it on the floor there. Winds up getting blocked and going the other way. So, that's part of getting used to playing with Caitlin Clark. If you remember at her rookie year, a lot of her teammates dropped a lot of passes, I think, that they weren't prepared for because she sees things.
Clark's court vision was operating faster than the rest of the team could process. She'd thread a pass into a space that looked empty, but she knew a teammate would be there in half a second. The problem was her teammates weren't moving at that speed yet. They were thinking at the old pace while Clark was already 3 steps ahead mentally. The coaching staff started paying attention to these timing issues. Players were late to cuts. They were missing windows that Clark was creating with her passes. When she'd kicked the ball out after drawing defenders, teammates weren't ready for the quick release opportunities. They needed time to process what Clark had already seen developing. Her logo 3-point range was creating problems, too. Defenders had to guard her from 30 foot out. That stretched the entire defense in ways that opened up passing lanes nobody had seen before. Clark was finding angles through defenses that shouldn't have been there. But her teammates weren't used to those spaces being available.
Caitlin coming off of this injury, this was kind of the first time that we all have seen her operating at 100% since her injury. And she herself admitted, even though I feel like I'm at 100, there's still a lot of things that a lot of rust that I need to shake off.
What did you see from Caitlin in USA camp being healthy?
Still there. That was one of my leads, was just, that shot of hers that we're also familiar with, very much still there. Her speed was coming back, which I thought stood out. Obviously, her timing on passing, that still was impressive.
Here's where it gets interesting. The coaches weren't trying to slow Clark down to match everyone else's pace. They weren't asking her to dumb down her passes or wait for teammates to get comfortable. Instead, they started teaching the other players to think faster. They were drilling the team to move at Clark's speed. The entire offensive system was being rebuilt around what Clark could do. Her passing ability was dictating how the team spaced the floor. Her shooting range was determining how they ran their sets. Her decision-making speed was setting the tempo for everyone else. This wasn't just about Clark adapting to Team USA style anymore. The whole team was adapting to maximize her unique abilities. Coaches were redesigning plays to take advantage of her vision. They were creating new sets that used her range to open up the offense in ways they'd never had before.
Only been one day, but what did you see from her so far? Have you had conversations with her about how she can, continue to kind of get acclimated to USA basketball after being Oxford?
Yeah, so this is the first time I've coached Caitlin or spend any time with her was today. She's a terrific player, really locked in and focused. The conversation I had with her pre-practice was that this is going to be one of the most fun experiences she's had because everyone at this level loves the game, a lot. And when you're growing up, in high school, not every player loves the game like you love it. And then you go to college and not every player loves the game like you love it. I'm talking about the elite skill, the elite competitors. Then you get here and you're like, whoa, there's more people like me. And it's just fantastic.
One partnership at Team USA camp was creating serious buzz among coaches for a very specific reason. Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston looked like they'd been playing together for years. Well, they had been. Their chemistry from the Indiana Fever was translating perfectly to the national team level. While other players were still figuring out Clark's tendencies, Boston was already reading her mind. Here's where it gets interesting. When Clark wasn't playing with Boston, the bigger players on the team struggled with her passes. Veterans were getting caught off guard by Clark's timing. But Boston, She was catching everything cleanly and finishing in traffic like they'd run these plays 1,000 times before. Their pick-and-roll combinations were creating serious problems for defenders. Clark would come off the screen and Boston would roll perfectly to the rim. The timing was automatic. The spacing was perfect. International teams aren't used to dealing with a point guard who can shoot from logo range and a center who moves like Boston does. That's a matchup nightmare waiting to happen.
Here you have De'Erica Hamby and Kelsey Plum, both of them on Caitlin Clark, because that's the way it goes. Caitlin Clark demands a lot of attention, which creates opportunities for other people, which you're going to see right here. That other person, by the way, is AB. It's been a while since we got to see that CC-AB connection.
Boston's ability to finish Clark's passes in traffic was giving coaches a glimpse of what this duo could do on the world stage. Clark would thread passes through defenders that shouldn't have been possible. Boston would catch them with soft hands and finish strong through contact. The inside-out balance they provided was exactly what Team USA needed to modernize their offensive approach. Other post players were taking notes on how Boston moved without the ball. She was creating space for Clark's passes by reading the defense early. She knew when to slip the screen and when to roll hard. She understood Clark's passing windows better than players who'd been on the national team for years. That basketball IQ combination was obvious to everyone watching. Angel Ree was at the camp, too, and she could see what made this partnership special. The chemistry wasn't forced. It was natural. Clark and Boston had spent a full WNBA season learning each other's games. They knew each other's strengths and how to maximize them together.